question for you. A very simple one, really. What comes to your mind when you think of the most wildly absurd controllers ever made? Did you think of the Konami Laser Scope? The headset that doubles as headphones but does the zapper no justice? Or what about the U-Force? The infrared censoring battleship looking mess of a peripheral? Or how about the LJN Rollin' Rocker? God, there was a lot for the NES, wasn't there? But there would be more to come out in the generations ahead, with perhaps the weirdest coming from Nintendo's GameCube. A pair of bongos to go with their stubborn monkeys' latest exploits. Like my tits? Donkey Kong Jungle Beat for the Nintendo GameCube. It's the mid-2000s. Nintendo was in an unusual place. Their GameCube was beginning to play third fiddle to Microsoft and Sony's hardware, and on the software side, though having many upsides, most were looking at the downs, some more unfairly than others. One of the more surprising turn of events came when Donkey Kong landed on the system. You see, DK was usually associated with Rare around this time, who created the phenomenal yet difficult Country series and DK64. But once Rare was acquired by Microsoft in 2002, Donkey Kong was back in the hands of the company that made him, and what did they do with him? Well, I can imagine it went something like,
"Hey, you know what makes the kids really like Donkey Kong? When they play random songs on the bongos."
And thus Donkey Konga was created that used a special bongo-type controller to mimic the instrument DK favors to play. Guitar Hero wasn't released until later, so they weren't capitalizing on that in their own weird way, but they were on a slight rhythm kick. Just gotta look at DDR Mario Mix as evidence of that. But when Miyamoto wanted a new true-to-form Donkey Kong game on the GameCube, Nintendo turned to their newly formed EAD team, gave them the bongos, and said have fun. And I'm sure they did when they came up with Jungle Beat. This game was released on March 14, 2005 to a positive reception from critics, which is not common to hear for a game that works with a completely different controller, but Nintendo is more than likely to get a new quirky controller over compared to third-party companies. We all remember the Wii Balance Board or the Zapper, and heck, a few of you may remember the Super Scope. Clearly not all of them were winners. But it looks like these bongos were when it came to this game. I have a faint memory of playing this at a friend's house and being kind of perplexed by it, but now that I've aged, I'm ready to try this out for realsies, so let's take a better look at Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. I'll tell you what I wasn't expecting to experience, a flashback right off the bat. And with a few claps, we're pretty much in there. You start right away with a brief tutorial to show you how the bongos work with DK, which boils down to tapping the left or right bongo to go in that direction, push both to jump or mash like hell, and clapping in lieu with the microphone in the center of the bongos to stun enemies or collect bananas that are in range. It wouldn't be a Donkey Kong game without the bananas. Once you figure that out, you'll be introduced to your first true level or kingdom with the banana.
Banana.
Each kingdom consists of 2 normal levels and a boss at the end, giving you 3 in total to get through. What you have to do in the first 2 is to basically get through them while avoiding enemies and obstacles, as well as collecting all the bananas you see. Some enemies can be taken down easily with one big punch of the bongos, or you have to beat those fucking bongos to a pulp to defeat bigger foes.
If we're gonna have more matching segments like that, I better have muscles on muscles and the strength of Gorilla Glue.
At the end of each stage, you'll see a gigantic fruit of the kingdom you're in. For DK, this is his fever dream. And you gotta jump up and clap so you can eat your way through, which will take you to a quick bonus stage where you gotta bang the bongos as quick as you can to earn additional bananas.
It's all about the potassium and the minerals.
The first 2 levels were a breeze and a nice and simple way to really get you familiar with the controls, but the true test will lie with your first boss, which changes gameplay a bit. You go against Dread Kong in a fisticuffs in the trees, and it comes down to finding the right opening to dodge and wail on the alpha so you can become Top Kong.
The Kong with dreads probably had 100 young. Well, now that I'm in charge, I'm gonna have to eat them all so I can retain my throne. DK is definitely a cannibal with those teeth.
Once you finish that, the total number of bananas you've accumulated will be tallied, and depending on what you get, you'll receive crests as rewards, with 800 looking like the sweet spot for gold. They'll come into play later as they're used to progress like stars are to Mario, but we have enough to progress to the next couple kingdoms, so let's see what we have in orange.
DK has his own Yoshi-type animal to mount, and it's more badass looking? Damn, this game is full of surprises.
This is quite the change of pace and workout to your arm, as you gotta keep tapping the bongo to pick up the speed. It's probably the best excuse to have an auto-scrolling type level, and heck, the bonus is different too.
Sure, you can ride whatever that is, but can it flutter? Ooh, Mario can suck on some spaghetti straws.
The rest of this kingdom, and even the other kingdoms remaining in this section, are basically the same. They may add a new gameplay element here or there, but remain self-explanatory. A few key things I did learn is that doing the clap to collect bananas nearby can actually increase their value like it was a combo.
Everyone dies, everyone dies, everyone dies! Bravo for genocide! Bravo!
And they act as health as well, so if you get hurt in any way, shape, or form, you're gonna lose some of your nanners.
I'm sure I've seen something like that before. They obviously got it from somewhere.
I also learned the rough plot of this game, where you as DK is filling the role of an almighty conqueror, going from kingdom to kingdom, defeating the rulers of that region so you can be the one and only king.
Just gives him more of an excuse to get into a victory pose and just show off his bongos.
Boss encounters do change, like in one kingdom you could be fighting a bird with a volcanic boiled egg, a mohawk towing hog, or a mechanized tank of an elephant. Each boss have their own unique way to defeating them, obviously, and you might get a hint of how on the very rare occasion of a mini-boss.
I think this pig must have flied. I mean, how did it get up that palm tree?
When you get through the 4 kingdoms, you'll move on to the next section, represented by a barrel, and depending on how many of those crests you have will determine how far you can progress. Gameplay again changes ever so slightly in some levels, like in this one now you can control these birds by using the bongos to make them flap and carry your fat ass, and also if you see these flower patterns spawn, they're an extra 100 bananas if you collect 100 pellets.
And before anyone says anything, yes, I do realize they're labeled beets for whatever reason, but I'm not stupid. A beet isn't yellow.
DK even has to get wet in a couple levels, and while the controls work okay, it's kinda tough to steer him in the right direction, as there's no real way to tell him to swim upward when you really need it.
But you can at least catch a ride on an orca. Free Willy.
The boss after this really pissed me off. It's another Kong encounter, this time with Karate Kong, and he lives up to that name as he's got the kicks to back it up. If you get hit, he's gonna lay multiple shots into you, which I kind of find unfair, cause you can't defend yourself like in Punch-Out, and you just have to take it. It took me a while to figure out his pattern and what to do, but by then I was so frustrated and low on bananas that I decided to restart.
And when I say restart, I mean you literally start at the first level of the kingdom. The way they did this may seem baffling, but they kinda made it make sense cause remember, the bananas you collect also act as health points and they come into play at the bosses as that's the only time you lose and not gain bananas. So you have to keep an eye out for any bananas you can get and memorize the boss's bullshit pattern so you can eventually show your dominance.
God, that would have been depressing if I died there. I don't know how I could explain it to my doctor. So, what you in for today? I ran out of bananas. Kid. Sit on it.
When you finish some kingdoms, the game will sometimes play a little clip showing you something you can do in the game you might not know about, which can be either a little secret or a combo chain. You can also do combo moves that'll also affect your banana combo if you can build it up enough without getting hit. So you could theoretically go through some levels without ever touching the ground, which is kinda cool and must be a pain in the ass for speedrunners.
When you're playing with this and want to go fast, mistakes will be made and bongos just fall on the floor.
The rest of the K section was unique but in a good way, like at one level you're swimming in what like gelatin in the clouds.
DK in the sky with jello.
Oh, and I should have asked this earlier, how come there's a zoomed in model of Donkey Kong appearing on the bottom left corner?
My guess would be if you're hard of seeing when the camera is zoomed out, but I want to believe it's something left over from testing just so Miyamoto could see his cum face. I won't lie, with the weird controller and the crazy shenanigans you put yourself into, not to mention the crazy visuals, I was having a good time. But then we got to the J barrel.
It's amazing how fast my experience with this game took a turn for the worse and went downhill fast. It all started fine, but then I got to this mini-boss that I couldn't figure out what to do as there was no clear indication. Turns out you had to clap when he was doing his sound beam or whatever, but I had to restart as I was getting my ass handed by this ballerina panda.
So intimidating, but so volatile.
And this was just the warning sign of what was to come. Levels got hard, but that's to be expected, and my inexperience of not knowing what to do at the right moment might have gotten me a little more ticked, but then it kinda overflowed when I faced off against the Torch Tusk, another elephant turret with more tricks up his trunk, but I was battling more with the bongos as I was the elephant, as DK kept clinging on the side wall which I didn't really want, or I was just screwing up a lot.
I had to restart again, and oh man, it's infuriating when having to do that when you're trying to be perfect like I am. I couldn't tell you how many times I did.
What the fuck?
Bosses got harder, but that's par for the course too. What I didn't expect was the level design to take a dip in quality. These ninja ones were the most annoying, like they threw all this shit at you with no real way of getting away from it, and I hated it so much. It just sucked, man. The Durian Kingdom was by far the worst. That's what I actually labeled this section of gameplay.
The battle for Storm Hill, Airy Fortress, and the boss fight against Ninja Kong were just downright terrible, so it made me feel good that I could bash those little shits on the head every once in a while.
But the fruit of your labor will be rewarded in the form of one final boss fight on the moon?
DK's going to space.
And the Cactus King turns out to be a pretty easy fight once you figure out what to do, and when you prove your might, the chimps serenade you at their own Pride Rock, then the credits roll not long after. So that's Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, or how you play it anyway. It's a brief experience that started out good, and then it kinda got, and I'm gonna use a big word here, tumultuous. I haven't been this verbally upset by a game in a while, but I still had a good time when it was good.
I don't think my hands could take beating these bongos much longer. They're as red as can be. Forget the N64 stick blisters on your palm. This shit goes for the whole thing.
The music was composed by Mahito Yokota, and he would go on to work on some of the best Nintendo game soundtracks. I believe this was his first for the company, and it's just fine. I would describe it as taking the safe route and keeping it to traditional DK music. The tunes do change to fit the levels, but you're not really gonna remember them while you're doing this the whole time you're playing.
But I do like how dumb they made DK sound in the menu.
So yeah, the music is okay. Not as good as what you'd find in the country games, but they're passable and get the job done.
You know, Nintendo made a Conga-like toy in the 70s back when they were just a toy company. It even had a crank machine where you can play special pre-recorded discs. Nintendo is very resourceful with their history. If you look back far enough, I'm sure you'll find something that connects to a game in some way, and who knows when they'll reach back there again. Maybe their next VR machine will look something like this.
For those of you looking for more bongo bashing, well, I'm happy to tell you there's more to do than just toggle those options. After the credits conclude, another barrel with more kingdoms appears.
I thought this would be an R barrel because it would make sense being that this DK is the DK Junior of old, but they went with the B barrel to fit the acronym of the game.
You might have to go back to previous kingdoms to earn more crests, so there's a little replay value if you are one of those completionist types, but these levels will be a test of your endurance and patience, because they are just as tough, if not tougher, than those in the J barrel. The first levels are a false promise, as you'll have to race underwater and with birds, which are as easy to control as they are in Country 2. And I'm being as sarcastic as I can with that statement. I was trying so hard to get first in these race levels, but it was so fucking difficult, and you can earn a bunch of nanners if you get there, but I had to settle for second, which doesn't sit well with the King of Kong.
Both the ape and the man, but at least one of them is not a proven cheater.
I eventually gave up because I was getting pissed off by all the bullshit that kept losing me my precious potassium. But there is an additional final boss waiting for you if you can stomach any more of DK's bongo BS.
It's like the rare team never even left. They just went apeshit with bongos.
Though Jungle Beat was a critical hit, it wasn't necessarily a commercial one, with one estimate showing it sold around 1.3 million units. I guess that's why Nintendo decided to release it on the Wii to recoup losses as well as show off their newfangled motion controls in a different way without the bongos. And while we're on the subject, the DK bongos never had more games work with them outside the Conga series or Jungle Beat, though a few games were initially planned to have support, including a DK racing game that would later drop the peripheral and find new life on the Wii as Barrel Blast. I kinda find it funny that DK and his bongos found themselves in a lull in the rhythm genre, when DDR was getting stagnant and Guitar Hero was about to give it a shot in the arm, but these bongos floundered and disappeared before they really ever got a chance to bang. The stubborn monkey himself would land back on his feet when he returned to his country courtesy of Retro Studios, and hasn't really looked back since. Neither has Nintendo EAD, as they went on to create several hits including Mario Galaxy, which you may notice borrows some elements of Jungle Beat here and there.
So, what is my rate to play? It isn't every day I get to play a game with an entirely unique way to play it. But I can also understand why I don't do it as much, as they tend to bring the worst out of me for some reason. But despite all the jankiness I found while playing, there's still something enjoyable here.
It still amazes me that Nintendo ditched the best controller they ever designed for what was essentially 3 buttons and a microphone, and still made it work. Granted, you could still play with a GameCube controller, but that defeats the whole experience. Donkey Kong Jungle Beat is one of those games that you definitely need to play in its original form. The bongos bring out the weirdness, originality, charm, and a whole new challenge for the new or experienced gamer. Though I do think the challenge ramps up real quick, even if it is a relatively short game. There's gonna be a whole lot of crap thrown at you with no time to fully adjust, and you might get pissed off if you think you're a player of higher standard, but with enough practice you should get over it without needing to hear from me or Bennett Foddy. If you're looking to play an outlier in the DK series, you cannot go wrong with this. And heck, you don't even have to stop there, as you can also jam out to the conga games with tunes like Sing 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 or All Star. Actually, no, let's not do that.
To conclude, I give this game a play rate of... gotta play.
But that's only my opinion. If you have your own thoughts, leave a comment. If you like what you see, leave a like. If you think others would enjoy this, share it around the web. And if you want to see more, subscribe. Anyway, this has been BrianTheBlue Game Reviews, Donkey Kong Jungle Beat for the GameCube. Brian here, want to quickly say thanks for watching this game review, as this and other content wouldn't be possible without you. I appreciate anyone and everyone who watches my videos from all across the world, but it alarms me that over 80% of viewers aren't subscribed to the channel. So I'd like to reiterate and ask you to subscribe, as well as ringing the bell to stay notified. That way you can stay up to date with future content that'll appear on the Jacobians channel. Presently I put out new quick views and current calamities every month, and my brother Alex has a brand new show all about wrestling games called WrestleBound. You might want to stick around, as we're only getting started. You can also find me on a couple of other channels. I run the Starfighters Arcade channel, where we take a look at the history of our machines on the floor, as well as show you our new arrivals, and on Millennial X, where me, arcade buddies, and family get into shenanigans playing, hunting, and reviewing games. If you want to explore more content, these would be the first places to go. That's all the time I got, but be sure to click the icon now if you want to watch the previous or upcoming episodes of Game Reviews.
Well, that was something. I'm so tired. I need to rest. What? DK would slap this.